And we're like, we know he's large horizontal. There's no way. Well, he came out in the testing as being vertical and axial.
Wow.
So then we look back at bombs that he hit in games. So all that time we were training him out of his profile. And again, you can be good at it just won't be optimal.
Right.
So when the lights were on, when the pitching was tough, he reverted back to what was natural.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the world's favorite youth baseball podcast, Clearing the Bases, featuring Coach Jimmy Filangieri. I'm David Friedman. I want to thank you for coming along on this ride with us.
One of the questions is, what is your 1424? And 14 minutes and 24 seconds is 1% of a day.
There you go.
So let's say you just get out of a cage or you leave in my facility and you're like, hey, what's your 1424? A kid should be able to tell you.
Yeah.
And maybe it's listening to this podcast for 14 minutes, you know?
So today, everybody, we have with us Dave Clay of KIME Performance. He's out of Richmond, Virginia. Now, let me tell you, Dave was drafted in 1981 by the Atlanta Braves. He spent 7 seasons in professional baseball, and now he runs KIME Performance, which is a premier baseball and softball facility focused on identifying and training to the athlete's unique motor preferences. So what we're going to do is we're going to get into these motor preferences things, which is really interesting to me, and I think Dave is the guy to explain it. So how are we doing today, Dave?
Oh, great, Jimmy. Thanks for having me on. Oh,
my pleasure. This is going to be a treat. Again, something out of our wheelhouse. Typically we just talk, baseball. So I'm really excited to talk about, motor preferences. I think this will be interesting.
Yeah, well, about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, I've always followed Matt Swope from the University of Maryland baseball. He was a hitting coach at the time, and kind of would agree with him on how to develop hitters. And then one day, my partner, Yuri Namkun, saw a video, I think it was on Twitter at the time, now X, and we were like, man, that really doesn't look like a good swing, what we would consider a good swing at the time. But Matt was touting it as being an awesome swing. So we were very curious, knowing we didn't know everything. So through doing a little digging, what it was motor preferences. And so when you turn on a big league game, everybody looks different on the field. And what it is, all these guys at the highest of levels are playing within their motor preferences.
Yeah, so we touched on it a little bit before we came on the air. Yeah, it's something that I've been interested in, I would say for the past few years, when it just kind of hit me in the head that all players move differently. So we have to instruct them differently to maximize their potential. I mean, is that pretty much the way this works out?
Yes, absolutely. So our history of it was, so I took a certification class through the parent company, Volo Dallin. They're out of Switzerland. So they do all the scientific research on motor preferences, I think since the 1980s. So that's all they do. So Matt Swope and David Genest of Motor Preferences partnered with Volo Dallin. I took the class. I think I mentioned online that it was the best money I'd ever spent. Motor Preferences found out about us, that we wanted to host a clinic. So they came to Richmond July of 2023. And since then, our world has changed. It's changed my life as an instructor. And that's what we do. So it's basically your unique body language. So you were born this way. So we have tests that will identify the body language of each individual.
So how is this type of training being received in the Richmond area? Are you getting a lot of buy-in, a lot of people coming to you?
It was real quick out of the gate, and then it slowed down a little bit. Now it's picking up again. Seeing the College World Series in softball And you see Oklahoma really dominating for the past few years their motor preferences program. And people are wondering why there's blue or red tape on the catcher's chest protector. That helps. But it's picking up because guys are improving immediately and feeling good about it. And so yeah, we're pretty excited about the future of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the more that people learn and the more that, we can put it out there through, this medium and other mediums, social media, whatever it be, I think because I know that it interests me tremendously. There's something that I kind of want you to explain. One of the principles of motor preference is maximum versus optimum. And when I read that, it interests me because I could see that there's a difference there between maximum optimum, and I'm sure you're going to be able to tell me, why.
Yeah. Well, we think at Motor Preferences, we think that balance and coordination is always going to trump force production. So, case in point, I can take, let's say, a weighted ball program. We can learn how to create force because the body's going to have an adaptation towards that ball. But is it really coordinated the way your body wants to move? So probably Volo Dallin would do a better job of that than me, but that's the way I view it. So we always look where the body's going to be most coordinated through. So case in point, we have two main categories. One's called an aerial. Okay. So an aerial prefers extension, vertical movement, center of gravity forward. So more in your forefeet. Like if you watch Ohtani hit, he's an aerial hitter. Less flexion in the legs. So we do testing. So if I test somebody and they're aerial, they're going to be more coordinated in their forefoot, more of their center of gravity forward. So that's going to create actually a cleaner, let's say if we're talking hitting, it's going to create a better swing that's going to be more coordinated and balanced.
Okay. So, and again, because I've done a little bit of research, so you're talking about, Ohtani being aerial. So now give us an example how somebody like, another hitter that may be terrestrial, I can't even say the word terrestrial.
So like a Bryce Harper is terrestrial.
Okay.
He wants the center of gravity behind him in his heels, kind of leaning back, like probably squats and deadlifts, or there's something that he loves to do to get to favor that. He prefers flexion, more flexion in the legs, which we see in his swing, more pronounced heel contact when he walks. So let's just say in a picture, we can watch a guy walk and pretty much know whether he's a drop and drive guy, which would be terrestrial, or a tall and fall, which would be more aerial, the movements coming from up above with an aerial. Now, I know this is kind of a bunch of word salad stuff. It's very simple in the end, but it seems complex. But what we do is, so we highlight whether a player's aerial or terrestrial. Those are the two main categories. And then there's subcategories underneath those. So let's take Harper for an example. Okay, so he's a terrestrial.
Okay.
And his arms, he's a horizontal, terrestrial, large. That's a piece of his profile. So large means he wants his arms away from his body when he launches a swing. Horizontal, his forearms are going to be horizontal to the ground, basically, when he launches a swing. Now, somebody could start as a vertical forearm hitter, and in their first move, they go to horizontal. They would be considered a horizontal. So I could give you some example of guys like Ronald Acuna. He's an aerial. He's large. He likes his elbows and arms away from his body, but he's vertical. He has slight verticalness in his forearms when he launches a swing. So So we wouldn't want to. And then Mike Trout, he's terrestrial. Now I know I'm getting in the weeds, but I just want to make a point. We wouldn't teach Mike Trout to swing like Bryce Harper because Trout is axial vertical in his arms, even though he's terrestrial. So, and then the other thing, really getting in the weeds, the associated, disassociated, or hip shoulder separation is huge. And that's probably the lowest hanging fruit we see because 99.9% of the industry wants hip shoulder separation or teaches it, the instructor. And really, it's wrong probably for half the population.
Wow, that's interesting. But what I like about what you're saying is that whether you're Mike Trout or you're Bryce Harper, there's not necessarily a right way to do it or a wrong way to do it. They're both very successful. They just do it differently.
Absolutely. And that goes for a 9-year-old as well.
Which is even more important for people to understand because
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the thing is, Jimmy, when you're working with hitters, if you're wrong, they're probably not going to get hurt. But if you're working with pitchers, now if we're doing the wrong thing, there's a price to pay for that at some point. Maybe the price is just not being good enough.
right.
Maybe the price is getting pretty good because the body is very adaptable. It can adapt to the wrong thing. It just won't be optimal. So that's kind of getting back to that maximum versus coordination piece. Maximum would be, let's say, just forcing things for the sake of force, rather than paying attention to what that person or player's body and brain wants to do, because the intention is going to drive the movement.
Right.
So what we do, if I could back up and just give you a quick synopsis of what we do with a player.
Yeah, go right ahead.
So we have a guy come in or a girl. We do softball work as well. We're really, the girls are, I mean, most of the girls are in profile. Imagine that. Maybe, nobody coached them out of profile.
Right.
But the thing is, so we had this one college guy come in from Tennessee. That's pressure when you're just starting out. A guy drives 6 hours to get helped, and you're like, I hope I can help him out. So what we do is they'll come in. We'll just observe them. So Yuri and I, my partner Yuri Namkun, who's just wonderful, just started out as a curious dad. Now he's one of the best hitting coaches probably in the country.
Wow.
So Yuri and I, we will observe. We'll just watch them walk around, do their tee work. We'll put the machine on, stress them out a little bit. Then we'll go through the testing. The testing takes about a half an hour or so. We always start with terrestrial, aerial, then vertical, horizontal, axial, large. So axial would be somebody who wants their arms closer to their body. So you find this in the real world too. So if you're sitting on the plane next to a large person, and a large is going to, he's going to, or she's going to really hog the armrest. So you want to be sitting next to an axial person on an airplane. So just by observing players with no stress on them, you can kind of get an idea of some of the profiling. Associated, disassociated is huge. So hip shoulder separation. So we test that through a red and blue. So a blue, if they see blue more coordinated, it means one thing. It means breathe in. They hold their breath when they make movement. Someone who sees red more coordinated is a breathe out. They will breathe out as they're making a movement.
Wow.
Supination, pronation, motor shoulder, motor eye, extension leg. I know I just want people to understand that we're covering pretty much the whole movement in a throw or a swing. And then, Matt Swope has been so gracious at the University of Maryland. Yuri and I have an open door policy. We can go up there and hang out with those guys. And we watch Matt Swope work with one of our guys, Carter Trice, a pro player with the Chicago Cubs. And And Lamont Wade with the Giants, he's having a pretty good year. So he's one of Swope's guys. So just getting in there and kind of getting your hands dirty, and he's got some things pretty well figured out.
Right. Right.
So then after we do the profile, we discuss it with the player when we match it to their video. So we shot a bunch of video with our hit tracks while we were doing the observation. So then we just match what we see with how they move with what the testing found. So sometimes there's some really low hanging fruit, and sometimes they're right on profile. Like that kid from the college kid from Tennessee, he was perfectly in profile, and I'm like, oh crap, what are we gonna do? And he gained 10 miles exit velo in an hour
Wow.
because he didn't know how to initiate it. So it needs to be intentional. So for an example, if I'm a right hand aerial associated, that means I don't want any hip shoulder separation. One of our cues is right shoulder, right hand, left elbow. We launch at the same time, and it's amazing what happens to the speed of the barrel.
Wow.
So for every profile, we have these cheat codes. So
That's interesting.
whether you're a thrower or a hitter, and it just one thing it does, well, it does many things, but one of the main things in motor preference is it feels good. You know, I'm sure you've hit a golf ball once where you really crushed it and everything was timed up and sequenced. It should be that type of feeling once we start getting them closer to the profile and giving them some cues to enhance it.
That's funny. When you use that example of the golf swing, I can actually feel it, what you just said.
Yeah.
You know?
So if you're a golfer, if you're aerial and you're trying to get into your heels swinging that golf club, you're not going to hit the ball as well.
Right. Right.
So Tiger Woods is aerial. Maybe he ripped up his front side because he should be associated. He's associated, so he should have that front foot a little more open. So that's a big piece. So all of our associated swingers, we land at an open 45
Okay.
because especially for an aerial, the power is coming from the shoulders, not the hips.
Mm-hmm.
So in aerial, the power comes from the shoulders. Terrestrial, more from the hips.
Wow. So
Okay.
does if you're terrestrial, does that mean that you land differently?
A terrestrial associated is still open.
Okay.
So we went up, I kind of learned that one time up at Maryland. Lamont Wade was doing some flips with Matt Swope, and they were doing a drill where he has a line on the floor and he's got to be 45-degree angle. You're still straight ahead. You're not stepping in the bucket. And that's to deliver the rotation because the hips and shoulders come closer together with an associated mover. Like, well, you will have some separation. You're just not chasing it.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to stay together, knowing that there will be a little. I think Matt and David talk about maybe up to 30 degrees is acceptable with an associated. But the thing is, from my experience, and I used to do a lot of things wrong. Now in hindsight, I used to chase disassociation with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
The bigger the hip shoulder separation, the more power.
Right.
So we're not chasing that. Now Harper, he's disassociated. He wants hip shoulder separation. That's his thing. I mean, when Harper first came up to the big leagues, everybody was tailoring I mean, we were doing the same thing. Right. Large horizontal, hip shoulder separation. That's the best way to swing. Harper. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're all guilty. We're all guilty of that. But if
you're not guilty if you change it. So.
Well, there you go.
Change your.
If you go back to the, maximum versus optimal,
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to make sure that everybody understands it, because this is the way I saw it, was that if you get your body to move optimally, I guess if that's a
Yes,
word, then you will get the maximum out of it. Is that right?
no doubt.
Okay, so
Absolutely.
so in other words, getting up there and again from a pitching standpoint to try and force 90 miles an hour, okay,
Mm-hmm.
what'll happen if you get your body to move
Yes,
if you get it to move in sequence, move the right way, there's going to be less effort, and then that
no,
will actually take care of itself, the velocity.
absolutely. So, case in point, we a college commit. He's a senior in high school, and Yuri, my partner, helps coach a high school team in Richmond. So one of his pitchers, we knew he was aerial. We knew there was something wrong there because his velo would really fluctuate from 83 to, let's say, 87. So
Okay.
we got him in, and all I had to do was take one look at him in his delivery. He was staying back. He was getting into his back heel, a lot of back leg flexion. So he was pitching his terrestrial, but he's aerial.
Hmm.
So all we had to do was get him in his right forefoot more in his loading, a quick leg lift, and pick up the tempo going to the plate. And boom, went right to 90.
Wow.
I mean, same arm, less effort. He was just out of profile. So what happens when you're out of profile too, as far as throwing strikes or being a hitter, being able to see the ball better? When you're out of profile, your brain is using resources that are needed for the task at hand, like to see the ball. So let's say if I'm a vertical hitter, but my coach is biased towards horizontal forearms, I'm burning resources that I need to see that ball a little bit better. Like I can still do it and be good, but I'm not at ease at the plate and just tracking the ball.
I mean, like you said, he may be good, but he could be better.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. So my opinion about it and is everyone should at some point get tested, and then you can make your own decision. Like maybe you're perfectly in profile and you just don't want to train it, or you come into our place. So we have a membership to where you can come in 10 times a month and just keep, and having fun with it. You should have a smile on your face because you're getting better and it's feeling good. So you don't need to grind it out and take 100 swings in the cage. You can sometimes maybe just take 20. You're good to go.
And that's to me, is the most important part, because if you could make your training fun and not seem like a job, then you're gonna, a player is
Yeah.
going to be more apt to do it because it's enjoyable.
Yeah. And then you would have to talk to somebody at Motor Preferences Experts. I'm not really that schooled on this yet, but your personality has a lot to do with your motor preferences profile, your physical profile. I mean, it's amazing how we one of our pro guys got assessed by Matt and David, and they knew his personality before they even met the kid.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So then you really know how to coach a guy. Like some guys, you know, some guys or girls for that matter, you need to know whether you push this person or you lay back or you need to speak softly or
Right.
so.
Right. Which is
Yeah,
which is
every coach should know that anyway.
I was
But
just going to say that. You took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, I have players, and I've said it a million times on this show. I have players that I will kick in the ass in a heartbeat, and then there are other players that you got to put your arm around them and you got to massage them, and you need to know that difference.
so, and then the other thing, one thing with motor preferences, say you're 12 years old, you get profiled, and you know who you are because you're going to have five coaches, six coaches along the way, whatever, until you're done playing.
Yep.
Not everybody's going to be privy to this, and so you gotta know yourself a little bit and have some confidence with who you are, and because if you're performing well, nobody's messing with you,
Yeah.
and so there's a big confidence thing I've seen with our people, and it's who they are. And now they can look at certain things. So the extension leg. So one side of your body is stronger than the other.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
So think about guys. Some guys will rotate around that back leg where a contact or finishing the swing, their head is kind of over the back knee, kind of a squish the bug kind of look from the back foot. And some guys have more of a lean back.
Yeah.
All right, can you picture it?
Yes, absolutely.
So an extension leg in the front. So this is your strongest leg. This is your strongest side of your body. Will be more of a lean back in that player's swing. Okay, because the extension leg is the axis of rotation. So you'll see a lean back. I mean, we've seen it, but we can't chase that for every hitter. So if the extension leg is in the rear, now that rear leg is the axis of rotation, and you'll see the head more over the back knee
Right.
at contact.
Right. But
There's
again,
nuances there where we don't have to teach, we don't necessarily have to teach that. And sometimes to get that extension leg right, I don't even talk about the legs. I might say, hey, so for a right-hand hitter that has a right motor shoulder, so the motor shoulder delivers the rotation of the upper body the best for that player. Okay, sometimes it's in the front.
mhm,
So if I say to a player, let's rip that right shoulder around as far as and aggressive as you can get it, the axis of rotation just cleans up immediately because the brain's number one job is to protect the body. So it just goes there.
yeah.
And so we have I don't know, we're pretty good at that stuff. Just trying to figure out, okay, how can we get the most bang for the buck in a cue? So we don't talk about like distal parts of the body, like what the feet are doing. They just happen when you put them in good situations and have the intention correct.
You know, you just took it's funny because you just took the words right out of my mouth. It's a cue, okay? And if, you know,
Yeah.
if the way I look at it is a cue is just something that goes into your head that's going to make your body move the way you need it to move. So,
Sure.
I
Yeah.
mean, like I said,
Well,
it's
the body's going to move because of the intention.
yes.
If there's no intention, you're leaving. So a lot of times in the cage, so we love the group atmosphere. So we have two cages. One has hit tracks in it with video, and we have a mound area, a bullpen area, and so we have let's say six players in there at the same time. It's not whack-a-mole taking 100, 200 swings at a time. It's get in there, get 10. Did it feel right? Do you need something? Do you need to sit down and think about what you're going to do next time up there? So there's a lot of reflection, paying attention to what the other guys are dealing with. I mean, that's a big part of learning. I mean, I thought I was a pretty good hitting coach before this, and I was a pitcher. And I would always be asked, well, why do you teach hitting? I'm like, well, I have a brain for one thing. The other thing is, I mean, I've watched hitters all my life.
Yeah. As a pitcher,
Trying to
sure.
get them out, trying to find weaknesses.
Right.
So that's kind of, but we love the atmosphere we have at KIME, and we think the reflection is a big piece of it. And we're all on the same page trying to get better, even though we're all individuals with different things to work on. But it all comes together in the end because the brain has to be right because hitting is tough, and tracking the baseball is extremely difficult. And we need everything to be in profile so the brain can focus on that one thing, and that's basically barreling the ball up. So
Right. So if I had to take one thing away from like what we've been talking about so far is, and this reminds me of, we're about the same age when we were younger. Okay. So when we played baseball as kids, up to the high school level, whatever, nobody ever taught us how to hit. Nobody ever told us your shoulders got to be here,
that's
your
right.
feet. We just, I guess it's pretty much the same concept where we did what worked for us according to how our body moved. And it was just natural.
Absolutely. So so I can't quite recall the name, the two pitchers in the San Francisco Giants bullpen. They're identical twins. One guy's a submarine righty, the other guy's a lefty throwing three-quarter.
Hmm.
They're still individuals. They still have different movement profiles. So why should, if we were playing together, our coach probably back in the day would have coached us the same. So
Right.
depending on the bias, uh, when I went to college, and I loved him to death, my college coach, Neil Serpico, and he would go to a clinic, come back and revamp everybody had to do the same thing. And then 6 months later, he'd go to another clinic and everybody had to adapt. And think about it this way, Jimmy. So KIME Performance is a facility where your son or daughter, you bring them in, they hand Yuri and I their puzzle, and we have to put it together for them. They don't put our puzzle together.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't have a puzzle anymore.
Right.
So
Right.
that's kind of how we look at it.
Yeah. And I mean, it really makes sense. So, I mean, I could see why it works.
Yeah. So we walked up a couple guys from mid 80s to 90 within, I don't know, 90 seconds on the mound. And I wasn't taking their shirt off and slapping them in the back and sniffing smelling salts. All I was just like, hey, you're getting kind of terrestrial here. Can you move a little quicker? And that's all it was.
That's
I
amazing.
wasn't telling them lead leg block. So that's another fallacy. Lead leg blocking isn't a preference for everybody. I mean, look at Nolan Ryan.
Hmm. Yeah.
He didn't lead leg block.
Right. Tom Seaver.
So, Tom Seaver, right? I have him written down. So Tom Seaver's a drop and drive, obviously probably a terrestrial.
Yeah.
Okay. So the other thing is too, we don't assume we know who somebody is. We have to go through the testing because they could have been coached out of their original profile. But typically, guys that have performed, especially the Hall of Fame level in the big leagues, they're probably in profile.
Right.
But let's say for a 15-year-old, well, we don't want to assume that he's a large horizontal just because that's the way he might have been coached out of his profile at some point, or he's imitating someone. So that's another thing. We don't really want to imitate guys, even the best guys in the world. We don't really want to do that unless we have the same profile. Then we can kind of look at that and say, okay. And then our gym at KIME, which is, I just love it because it's more of an exploration of the player and feels than us telling them what to do.
Right.
We talk about exploring things like, hey, let's explore you getting your hands a little bit farther away from your body since you're large. Let's just go there. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. We can always go back. So there's different levels of, let's say, axial large or terrestrial. It's not all, everybody has to do this like a Barry Bonds large horizontal. Not everybody has to swing. Not everybody has to launch from where he launched from.
Right.
So it's individual as well, even though it's in the same profile.
One of the things that I've come to learn, and again, I think that this is in line with what you're teaching, is, and I'll use hitters as an example, is at the high school level, our season is very short. So I don't have time to do like pretty much
Oh, sure.
anything with the players in terms of anything mechanical, we'll say. So basically what I'll tell them is a couple of things. You got to stay behind the ball. You have to keep your eyes on the ball. And
Right.
you have to, in my opinion, you have to stay on top of the ball. I don't like an uppercut swing. I want you to stay on plane.
Sure.
And that's it. I
Yeah.
don't, how you get there and how you do that. And I tell my players that flat out. How you get there, how you do that, I don't care. Just that's what we need to do. And let's go hit the baseball.
That's right. And you're going to be looking at them differently now because you're going to be like, okay, that guy, he's a horizontal swinger, let's say. The bat path needs to be more horizontal, okay? A vertical swinger will finish high or vertical forearms. So it starts vertical, finishes vertical, and it could be as simple as that with a kid. Hey, I want you to get to this vertical position as quick as you can on the finish, and boom. Because it's kind of like a destination cue. If you know where you're going, you'll find a way to get there.
Right.
And so there could be things, even if you're at a high school, you don't have time. Same thing with Yuri at his high school. He doesn't have time to change guys, but he's smart enough and knows motor preference very well to see some of his pictures. I think he should be more aerial. And so an aerial wants a quicker tempo.
Right.
A terrestrial wants to get into the ground. Okay, get into the ground, get in. So when you think back, and same thing when I was pitching in college, everything was ground based, ground force production, a lot of glute, build a big ass and big legs to throw gas, and it's only true for certain profiles.
Yeah.
You're actually wasting time. So if you do this, Jimmy, let me run a test on you and the audience. So if you cross your arms in front of you real quick, okay? So you're left over right. Take them down, take them apart, go right over left really quick. Go. You went back to preference. So think about that.
That's
Why
funny.
would we change that? We're going to make you, because I could train you the opposite for 6 months. You could get good at it, but it'll never be as good as your natural preference.
Right.
So
Well,
what we want to do is we want to train that natural preference for 6 months, and you're going to be killing it.
that was really interesting because that just proved to me that,
Yeah.
my natural thing, like you said, is right over left. Even to do it left over right, I have to stop and think.
Yeah.
And that's once you start thinking,
So
you're done.
imagine, yeah. So Jimmy, imagine you're in the batter's box and you have a thought, a terrestrial thought, because your coach is trying to get you into that back heel and corkscrew to freaking hips and stuff like that. When you're aerial and you just want to go with your back shoulder, let's say,
Yeah.
you can't see the ball as well because you're using those mental resources to to take you really out of profile. You just don't know it. You're listening to the coach and he's doing the best thing he knows. I mean, that's the way he hit, right?
Right.
Why can't everybody hit that way?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, and we talked about Hank Aaron off screen and Hank, right? He's a doer.
Oh, yeah.
He's a doer.
Yeah.
I mean, those guys back in the day, why do they look so much different than, say, high school kids that are going to these academies and getting trained to death the same way? Like, I just cringe at some, and I know the industry pretty well, but if you sign your kid up for a 20 player class and they're going from point A to point B and this and that, believe me, it's not individualized, even though they're going to sell it as that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can really draw a hard line with that, but this is a nice show. So,
Well,
but people know who when you come in and train at our facility, it's I think it's rather refreshing for everyone, especially for me. I mean, that's the best. That's the most fun I have is when we meet somebody new and we profile them. And a lot of times the kid will look at the mom or dad and say, "See, I told you. I told you that's what I wanted to do." So,
that's funny. But yeah, I mean, again, all of this, it's fantastic because I'm a big common sense guy, and it seems to me to be just common sense that if this is the way your body moves, let's go with it, and
yeah.
let's again, optimize.
Yeah. Oh, that's correct. Yeah, we're not trying you know, the kind of the American way is no pain, no gain. Let's grind it out, beat yourself up, get up at 5 a.m. and take a 5 mile run and lift some weights. I'm not saying that that's bad. It's just not optimizing who you are
Yeah,
if you want to be an athlete.
right.
You need to find out who you are first, or you do things that feel good. Like
Yeah,
if you love to run and you feel good doing it, you're probably doing it pretty well. You probably don't need a coach.
right.
So case in point, a lot of people, Dave, how can I gain foot speed? And I ask them there, well, do you ever go outside and sprint? No. And they, okay, let's just start with that. You don't need a coach.
Yeah,
Take your iPhone out and time yourself and try to beat that time
yeah,
every day, and you'll get faster.
yeah.
And because every coach out there probably is going to tend towards an aerial type of runner, when there's terrestrials that are more heel strikers that are very fast as well. So there's, um,
So explain that a little bit about heel strikers, and I forgot what the other one
okay.
is. Guys that are more on their toes will say, but explain that.
Yeah, well, a terrestrial, their center of gravity, they like behind them. So to be more on the heels, they form more and they're more coordinated there. In the aerial, like imagine a skyscraper and kind of leans forward a little bit.
Hmm.
So an aerial's more coordinated there. So when we do the testing, it's a remarkable difference for most people. We just put them in those positions, like more of a squatty position for a terrestrial, and they're real solid. And so as far as walking and running, what you'll see is a terrestrial walker will lead more with the hips and feet, okay?
Hmm.
And have more pronounced heel ground contact. They like to be into the ground. So if you Google an elephant running, that's a terrestrial. They're
Okay.
low to the ground. They don't oscillate at all. I think their head might oscillate maybe 1 inch running 35 miles an hour. So that's more terrestrial. Like, so their feet lead, heel strike, hips lead. An aerial is going to have less heel contact walking. The shoulders will lead, like they're leaning forward a little bit.
Hmm.
Okay. The gaze of an aerial will be more to the ground. So when they're out walking, they'll find more money than a terrestrial whose gaze is more horizontal.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
it
So
does.
it's more forward lean. So then when we take it into a pitching realm, okay? So if I'm aerial right leg extension, I'm a right-handed hitter. I want to be in my right forefoot on the rubber. So my push leg, I want to be into that forefoot, not the heel.
Hmm.
So with a right extension leg aerial, getting into the weeds a little bit here with you,
Hmm.
but your least uh, balance point. So if we have four balance points in our feet, 4 feet, so we have two 4 feet and then two heels. So an aerial right extension leg, the right heel is the worst point of balance and coordination. But think about in the pitching world, how many coaches are going to want him getting into that right heel on the rubber and sinking down. And that's really where we've seen the biggest changes for guys that were doing that in their aerial. All you have to do is say, hey, I want your brain in the number one and physically in that number one, and boom, velocity jumps, arm feels better. So
You know, it's funny because as you're saying it, I'm sitting here and I'm trying to feel exactly what you're talking about. And
mhm.
yes, I mean, if you get into your heel, while you're pitching, to me, that just feels, again, unnatural.
Yeah. So do you think you're aerial or terrestrial?
I guess, I mean, I would bet that I'm probably aerial.
Yeah. So you could have been a big leaguer, man, if we would have met you. If we would have met, hey, same with me too. I mean, all my coaching, I know it was terrestrial based,
Right.
but here's the thing though too. So Yuri Namku, my partner, his son's a high school player, just finished his junior year. We could always get him to hit well in the cage, and we were biased towards terrestrial, large horizontal. Okay. So
Okay.
arms away from the body, arms horizontal like a Barry Bonds, a lot of scap load. And he could do well in the cage, but he could never really square balls up well in games or against live pitching. So we went back and looked at some, well, let me forward a little bit with that story. So then we hosted the clinic with Matt and David and Nick Robinson, who's another piece of the motor preferences. Uh, Noah, Yuri's son, was getting tested,
Hmm.
and we're like, we know he's large horizontal. There's no way. Well, he came out in the testing as being vertical and axial.
Wow.
So then we look back at bombs that he hit in games. So all that time we were training him out of his profile. And again, you can be good at it, it just won't be optimal.
Right.
So when the lights were on, when the pitching was tough, he reverted back to what was natural. And so now it makes it so much easier. That's what he wants to do, and that's how we coach him.
Yeah. I
It's
mean,
just
I love it.
Yeah, and we were coaching him as a terrestrial. He is terrestrial, so at least we didn't have that screwed up. But we were just lucky. So we have a guy who is at University of Tennessee, just won a national championship, Cannon Peebles. So he's a switch hitter, terrestrial, large horizontal. Okay, so his forearms are horizontal to the floor. His arms are away from his body. He's a hell of a hitter from both sides. Great power. We got lucky with him. He just happened to fit our bias over the course of, the past 3, 4 years. So you can get lucky, but we want to be good. We don't want to be lucky with that.
So, real quick, when you again you get a hitter in there, I know that you were a pitcher, but
Hmm.
I'm more of a hitting guy than I am a pitching guy, so I kind of gravitate towards hitters.
Uh-huh.
But when you have a hitter and he comes in and you're trying to get a profile on him,
Yeah.
when you have him hit, I'm sure you just basically have him free swinging.
Yeah. I
How do
don't
you
say anything.
how do you get him? In other words, if somebody taught him to swing a
Yeah.
certain way, how do you know that that's not natural?
Through the testing.
Okay.
So we do the testing. So we have all this video on what he actually does at the moment.
Hmm.
Then we go through the testing. Okay. And we'll give them some grace there because maybe they've become pretty darn good at it,
Hmm.
and maybe the profile is more of in a gray area and it's not extremely to one way or the other.
Hmm.
Okay. Like sometimes guys' arms or girls' arms are slightly vertical,
Hmm.
and some are extremely vertical.
Hmm.
So it could lend to be okay. He's testing his, let's say, horizontal. He's slightly vertical. We're going to give him some grace. We're just going to explore things for months.
Hmm.
And then we always go back if we think that we're off on something, we'll always go back and recheck.
Wow.
We're always rechecking stuff. Like might get out of the cage. Hey, let me check that. So we'll do stuff like that. But so after the testing, we'll just have a discussion and explain what just happened. We'll show video on how they move now. And we're just saying, hey, we're going to explore this. And the player's feedback is crucial. Okay.
Hmm.
So
Sure.
we always listen to the player, like, because it shouldn't feel like crap.
Right.
Okay. It should feel good.
Right.
Not to say that they haven't burned in maybe a bad pattern that might take a little while, but typically things happen pretty fast. Problem with guys is they want to grind.
Hmm.
They love that battle.
Yeah.
So when you get them in the profile, sometimes they get out because they don't want to feel it to be that good. That
Right.
might be weird, but that's kind of the way our
Well,
society is a little bit, maybe.
well, I was going to say, because could it be that, again, he gets in, he's swinging, in profile,
Hmm.
and it's smooth, it feels good. The player may say to himself, well, wait a minute, something's wrong because I'm not. And again, I'm guilty of it all the time, saying be
Oh,
comfortable
sure.
being uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's right. See, we don't say I don't say that anymore.
Yeah.
I
Right.
used to.
Yeah.
Yeah, we want them to be comfortable.
Yeah.
Hey, I mean, look at the big league level right now. Well, even college. You got guys pumping hundreds coming in out of the bullpen with nasty breaking balls. I mean, you have to be in profile and the brain has to be at ease. So
Wow.
yeah, that grinding it out is it's fine for some things, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. There are, certain areas, you had touched on it a little bit. I mean, running, for instance, running, yeah, you got to grind. You got to do it. Of
Yeah,
course, to your point, if you want to become faster, you have to sprint more. So if you're sprinting a lot, then that's a grind. That's some
yeah.
type of grind.
And I gotta believe, and I don't know this is fact. This is just, you know, I would think if you go out there and sprint, you're going to be fairly in your running profile. Most people haven't been told, like, hey, you need to run like this. Now, you might have some misconceptions about how your arms should move by watching some videos, but it should be more natural. So a horizontal runner, the arms will move a little bit more side to side,
Hmm.
not straight up and down.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's the same thing if you like Roger Federer is an aerial tennis player. If so now when you run across a video, you'll be like, man, so he goes into extension in his joints when he's swinging the racket.
Hmm.
He's not going into flexion. So a terrestrial would go into flexion when
Right.
they're making movement.
Wow. That's interesting. See, and again, going back to the running, right? And you explained it about, guys that will run on their heels and guys that'll run on their toes. Now, I know me,
And then there's levels all in between. So
right?
there's ranges. Yeah.
If I saw a guy running on his heels, that would bother me.
Right. Even though he's fast.
Exactly. Exactly. So, again, this is opening my eyes a bit that, if he's running on his heels and he's fast, I mean, I
Well,
guess the thing is leave him alone.
Well, right. One of the main things that I need that I forgot to mention so far is if the athlete is not in pain, okay,
Right.
they're probably doing all right. So when you said when a guy's out of profile a little bit, what do you do? Well, the first thing you want to check is there any pain involved?
Right.
So especially with runners and pitchers,
Right.
because if you take them out of profile running, they're going to probably get some leg pain at some point.
Hmm.
Some,
That makes
but
sense.
but with pitching, I mean, think about the Tommy John epidemic.
Yeah.
I mean, when I played, uh, I met my wife in 1985. So she was with me, played a few more years, and we had a conversation a couple months ago. And I said, "Can you remember anybody getting arm surgery that were our teammates?"
Yes, I know. I
I
feel the
mean,
same way.
maybe one or two.
Yeah,
And it was labrum. It wasn't, not
right.
that, not, but so there's got to be something. There's got to be something there where maybe the training. I mean, they're training harder and they know all this stuff, but the biggest thing is I think that's missing is maybe the motor preferences profile. You
Yeah,
got to make sure you're training within that profile as well.
yeah. I mean, it makes sense. I forgot who it was I was talking to. Who was it recently? Oh, I think it was Rich Taylor. Okay. And he said that he spent some time with Dr. Andrews, and Dr. Andrews said that, and again, this is going back like 10, maybe 15 years ago. And he said
Yeah,
that he did 50 Tommy John surgeries on kids that were 12 and under. That blew
yeah,
me away. How could that
yeah, I
happen?
know. Yeah, and pitching, hitting's a lot easier to work with. Hitters are a lot easier to work with because there's really no fear of them getting hurt or them getting hurt on my watch. But pitching, you got to be careful. And yeah, and a lot of these programs are adaptation programs. They're putting a constraint on maybe areas where there doesn't need to be a constraint.
Right,
So think about this. If my internal rotation of my throwing arm is lacking this universal model that somebody's going by, that's not an individualized program. I'm taking a one size fits all,
right,
and it doesn't because that player, as long as he doesn't have pain, then he's all right where he's at. Now, if he's having some pain, then some things need to be looked at. And the first thing I would look at is he moving in his profile?
right, right.
And it's a stressful thing to throw the baseball that hard. So
Sure. It's
there will be some wear and tear stuff, of course.
right. But the,
Uh,
the other thing that I think too, and again, you're going back to when we were young, okay? And I say this on the show all the time. So I don't believe that kids nowadays get that break that we used to get. Because when we were kids, once baseball season was over,
sure.
we did not keep playing baseball and training and this and that. We didn't. We played other sports. And then, next spring came around, we started playing baseball again. It has got to be
Mhm.
something to that.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, what I think it is, uh, it doesn't have to be organized sport.
Right.
You get done playing baseball, maybe a guy is not very good at anything else and he can't make a team.
Right.
He's not out there shooting hoops in the driveway or playing some sandlot football or just throwing the football around or yeah, we used to jump. I mean, for in growing up in Pennsylvania, there was nowhere indoors to go, and if there was, I don't think my family could afford anything extra like that. But yeah, like you said, we would run, from season to season, depending on what the weather was and what the sport was. Now, case in point, though, I grew up across the street from an old baseball field nobody would use except for my older brother and I.
Hmm.
I used to pitch a whole game over there when I was in Little League and then pitch at night. Nobody had a pitch count on me,
Hmm. Yeah.
but I wasn't coached.
Right.
Didn't maybe that had a piece to do with it, or maybe just from we were always out throwing something, didn't matter what time of the year it was.
Right.
Now I don't, I'm not the kind of guy that says everybody should play other sports, but I do agree with they should be doing something else that's giving them some activity. It doesn't have to be, uh, joining a team or an organization. I think, a lot of times if you go play basketball somewhere and you're not that good, where you're sitting on the bench, you're really not doing that much.
Hmm.
in this more formal setting, I would say, more of the backyard kind of basketball and football can be beneficial for sure. And
Yeah,
then that way they're not throwing. The problem I see with travel ball and the showcase stuff, they're pitching too much and not throwing enough.
right. Yes, I agree with that 100%.
So the development is getting lost,
Right.
and it should be 10 times the development, let's say as far as hours for every hour of play. Maybe a ratio
Right.
somewhere close to that.
Yeah, it makes sense. But
I mean, I never, and then when somebody comes in to throw, they want to just gas it up. And when you should be in here a couple days a week, just feeling things and learning how to command stuff. And so, it's maybe that's just being an old man kind of thought. But
well, I mean, I think the same way. I mean, my my latest thing that I love to say is nobody cares how hard you throw a ball for. I mean,
that's right.
nobody cares.
Good one. That is a good one.
Yeah.
But it gets you in the door of opportunity.
Well, yeah, I do understand that to some degree.
But you can't get outs like so
Right. What's the point? I mean, I'll take a guy,
yeah.
at the high school level, I'll take a guy that's throwing 75 miles an hour over a guy that's throwing 90 and can't throw strikes.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, what's the
You don't want to make too many trips to the mound. I mean, that's the worst thing a coach can do, right?
Yeah, it's like, let's put the ball in play, let the defense do their thing, and what happens, happens. But if you're walking everybody around the bases, what are we doing here?
Yeah, that's true. Hey, and once you're at that point, it's not mechanics.
Right.
It's all mindset. It's all in your head.
Oh, yeah.
But that can be trained.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. But you know what, Dave? I got to tell you, we're just a little bit over an hour, so we're going to have to start wrapping up. But
all right.
let's go over one other quick thing before I let you go, and that's
Okay.
the monitoring of everything. How do you monitor these players?
Well, by having the membership program, I see them all the time. So they're going to be in there 4 times a week. We have the hit tracks moderating or getting the data on uh, their video, their metrics. So we see the metrics go up, videos looking better. I mean, that's something. It's not everything though, because uh, again, if you can hit one ball 100 miles an hour one time every 6 months, it doesn't really help the team much.
Right. Right.
And so more barrel consistency when we see more consistent line drives, um, exit velos on average are higher. We have not seen anybody go down in exit velos. So now when you're dealing with a younger population, though, Mother Nature's helping all that. So, that's a big piece of it. But
Sure.
as far as monitoring, we just see them a lot. And if anybody has any problems, they know that they call me, they text me, they send me video from the field. And video is more or less like, yeah, you're good, looks good. Is
Right.
the process, the biggest thing is the process, right? Are
Absolutely.
you concentrating pitch to pitch, or are you living in the past or in the future? Are you anxious about the next pitch, or are you pissed about the last pitch? Uh, so I'm getting big into that now. I've done Brian Kane's mental performance mastery class, and I need to get better with that. I want to start, and Yuri's on the same page with that, getting more into the mindset. And because even though they're kids, they got a lot going on, and they need to try to be present when they're in our building. So right now I just put up a sign out front: phones off, be present. The phone is a huge distractor for me as well. So we like to have everybody in there be present and pay attention to what's going on, and because hitting a baseball again, is so tough. Softball might even be tougher.
Yeah,
And if you're not present in that batter's box or on the mound, it's a tough go.
sure. Yeah, I mean, I would say that I spend with my team, I'm going to guess 75 to 80% of the time working on mental performance because I believe that's the whole game. I,
Oh
I've,
yeah.
al- I've always said it, and again, people on the show get tired of hearing me say it, but I'll take a lesser talented player with a good mindset over a really talented player with a bad
Yeah.
mindset in a heartbeat.
So Zach Sorensen, who is a student of Brian Cain's, he has a book called The Hard 90. Fabulous book. Any young player, any coach, anybody, it's a great, easy read. It's not very long, but he has a few questions. So one of his books is, I think it's just 4 questions, and and one of the questions is, what is your 1424? And 14 minutes and 24 seconds is 1% of a day.
There you go.
So let's say you just get out of a cage or you leave in my facility and you're like, hey, what's your 1424? A kid should be able to tell you.
Yeah,
Like and maybe it's listening to this podcast for 14 minutes. I mean, it just something positive, have a plan, and what did you do well? What do you want to change, and how you going to do it? And what's your 1424?
right.
And
Yeah,
maybe for a player, and Zach uses this example, you got picked off by a lefty, okay,
right.
off of first base. So, okay, maybe your 1424 is you're going to come out early, you're going to grab one of the lefties on your team, and you're going to work on getting reads off a left-handed pitcher,
Yeah,
taking a negative and making it a positive. And if you do that every day, kind of doing a little bit of a lot, you're going to get good.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, that's where the game is. But Dave, I got to tell you something. This was fantastic. This hour flew by. I mean, there was so much good stuff there that I am so thankful for you coming on the show. And do me a favor, just tell everybody out there if they need to get in touch with you, how they can do it.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jimmy. Really appreciate it. This was awesome. Always love talking shop with somebody who really cares and really trying to help people out. KIME Performance. It's KIME. It's a Japanese word. KIMEPerformance.net. My phone number's on the website, and my email, as well as Yuri's. Just reach out if anybody just wants to know a little bit more about motor preferences. I'm always willing to talk about it. And you might have to cut me off, but I really love it. It's been life changing for me, and hopefully for our players and our future players. And if you're near Richmond, come in and check us out. I always give everyone a free kind of walk through and hit with us and see what's going on. And yeah, we love it. So, but thanks so much, Jimmy.
No, like I said, it was my pleasure and I appreciate it. And, let's stay in touch. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff there. And like I said, I probably, hit you up every now and then and say, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that?
That'd be great.
Again, Dave, thank you so much. And, enjoy the rest of the weekend.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Take care
Thanks,
now.
man. All right, bye.
Bye. Everybody's body moves differently. So why would we train everybody in a cookie cutter fashion where everything is the same for each player? It doesn't work like that. And I think Dave did a really good job of explaining how some training methods for one player will help him, but a totally different training environment will help another player. So I want to thank Dave Clay for coming on and sharing with us. Listen, go out, check him out, KIMEPerformance.net. KIME is spelled K-I-M-E. There's also another site that I think you should go and look at. It's called the motorpreferencesexperts.com. So motorpreferenceexperts.com. There's a whole bunch of information there on motor preferences and how the body moves and what we can do to better train our players. So I want to thank everybody for spending some time with us. Go ahead and check us out on X, Facebook, and don't forget our new website, thectbshow.net. There's all kinds of stuff there. You can leave reviews, you can leave comments, you can contact us, you can even sign up to be a guest on the show. So check it out and let us know what you think. You know, another thing that I got from talking to Dave was that, yeah, he knows a lot about motor preferences and how the body moves and how he can help his players. But something that came through loud and clear to me was that Dave knows people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you on the next one.